Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is finally out this week. We have waited so long. This is going to be my non-spoiler review for the movie, so you are safe. And I'm ready to tell you guys why I found this to be a satisfying but very messy movie. What's going on, buddy? Welcome back to a brand new non-spoiler review for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Doctor Stephen Strange casts a forbidden spell that opens the doorway to the multiverse, including alternate versions of himself, whose threat to humanity is too great for the combined forces of Strange, Wong, Wanda Maximoff, and even America Chavez. Now, I have been very excited for this movie so many times I have been, and definitely I'm sure many of you guys have also been pretty excited. Even though I'm saying this is a satisfying mess, I cannot wait to have a great conversation with you guys down below in the comment section. Do beware of spoilers, because other people will spoil the movie for you, but please leave a comment. Let's hear it. And if you are interested in more Doctor Strange content, I have tons of content coming up later this week. A spoiler discussion, an MCU ranking, and a cameo rank, because of course we all know there is going to be cameos in the multiverse. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe button for tons of that content later this week. Starting with this review, let's dive into my expectations for what I wanted to get out of this movie, because I feel like it's very important for a big budgeted movie to understand what I was expecting from this movie. And just so you know, Sam Raimi is my favorite horror director of all time. The original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films are some of my favorites of all time, and man, Sam Raimi, very much so. When he was announced, I remember I was at a Johnny Rockets about to go see Birds of Prey at a press screening, and I saw the news broke that Sam Raimi was going to be directing the next Doctor Strange, and that just excited me to no end. I was a little bit disappointed that Scott Derrickson wasn't coming back, but if you're gonna get another horror director to come on board, you can't go any better than Sam Raimi, in my opinion. And Sam Raimi, very much diving right into my pros, is the best element of this entire film. When they are letting Sam Raimi do exactly what Sam Raimi is, because his handprint, his footprint, his style is all over this immaculate movie because of him. If it was not for him, I totally feel that this movie would not be as good as it is. He keeps the film at its center, at its funky brutality, and even gruesome style, because this movie, Kevin Feige said that this is diving into the horror realm, and it very much does. In a sense, this was actually very much more Evil Dead and Drag Me to Hell than it is Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man series. And I was actually quite shocked to see that, because of the lot of demonic and horrific imagery that we get in here. I honestly don't even think that younger kids could possibly see this because of how, again, brutal and scary this movie can be. There's actually some really fun jump scares in here. Nothing that's going to make you grown adults go home and really much not go to sleep, but there's a lot of fun elements in here that Sam Raimi infuses that he has always done throughout his entire career, and I love that he was able to do that. As well, knowing that he is a giant comic book fan, he is able to infuse a lot of lively, vivid, fever-pitch type dream-like sequences from the comic book genre, and from his creative style, he's able to bring that to life in such a fascinating way, and one that I very much was on board for every single time he was able to direct the hell out of this film. Every single action set piece that he is able to infuse in, especially all the stuff with the Illuminati. We've seen a lot of teases of it in the trailer. You have not seen anything yet to how crazy that scene can go, and really much the action sequences are insane. One of my favorite ones, and again, no spoilers, I'm going to stay as vague as possible, just deals with music. And the way that he was able to create, whether it was the VFX and even some of the stylistic approaches in there, was stunning and literally feels like it was ripped right out of a Doctor Strange comic. And a lot of Doctor Strange fans are going to love that sequence. And I can't express enough how important Danny Elfman's score was for that moment and scene. Speaking of Danny Elfman, this was easily one of his best scores in quite a while. And I was very happy to see that the way that he infused older scores inside of here, especially when it comes down to Easter egg like stuff. I am a little bit disappointed we didn't get the original Doctor Strange theme from Scott Derrickson's movie, but you know, there's little details here and there of it. And speaking of the Easter eggs that I did just mention, there are Easter eggs galore in this film, from the comic books to certain things that very much pose to the future of the MCU. One in particular I was absolutely geeking out about, and if you catch it, there's going to be a lot of discussions in that spoiler review that I do about that in particular line and how important it is for the future of this franchise and in general the MCU itself. Of course, one of the things that I feel like a lot of us were actually worried about with this movie, and this is actually one of my pros, is the cameos. This is not a cameo galore movie as much as us were expecting for the months to come. This is actually a movie that really much centers more on our main characters and does have some really awesome cameos to it, some that many people will freak out about. Almost all of them I loved, and I loved the approach to it. Some of them were fine. They were fine, and we'll definitely discuss that later down this week, but I still was very impressed to see that it wasn't just a cameo galore, and I'm so happy it wasn't. And that's where we remain to the best part about this other than Sam Raimi, and that is Elizabeth Olsen. She is absolutely the best part about this entire movie. She is incredible, and she gives a near perfect performance, just as great as she was in WandaVision, if not even better. It's a different version of her, a version of the Scarlet Witch that is even more confident than we had seen before, and I absolutely ate up every single moment. She was emotionally a wreck, but truly enough, horrific, horrifying, and just straight up awesome. I love what Elizabeth Olsen was able to do in here, and it's different than anything we've seen Wanda Maximoff do before. Adding in, of course, this is Benedict Cumberbatch's story, and he infuses a very much soul-like to his performance of Doctor Strange. And for me, I've always loved Doctor Strange as a character in this world. I know some people don't love how arrogant he is, but I do feel in this movie, if you didn't love him in the first movie, but you started to like him in the further movies like Infinity War, Endgame, Spider-Man No Way Home, this will be a movie that I finally think gets you on board for him, because there is an emotional arc for him that very much is infused with Rachel McAdams, Christine Palmer, who very much, thankfully, she gets a lot more to do in here, and I think she was quite wonderful in here. Very much love her character and the dynamic that we got between Doctor Strange and her, and we'll discuss a little bit more of that in just a second. As well, diving in, Benedict Wong is once again great. And of course, Xochitl Gomez as America Chavez brings such a youthfulness to this entire role, but a very important one, and I can't wait to see more of her in the MCU in the future, because she was a big standout. But let's start diving into why this film is a little bit of a mess at times, even though it is satisfying, and a lot of that starts with one of my mixed aspects, and I was a defender of this. 2 hours and 6 minutes runtime, you can do a lot in that. As the film continued, I feel like there was a lot of stuff missing. It feels like they very much reworked a lot of the script towards the back end with the editing style, and I do end up feeling that the movie needed a lot more in its ending game of it all. Very much so. I feel like a lot of that just goes because the movie at the very start of the film just goes and never stops. Even when the movie ends, while it gives you a lot of satisfying moments with certain characters and certain things, it ends in a way that just boom goes, and it still feels like it's going. Even by the end credit scenes, it still feels like it's at a fever pitch rush, and I always felt like it needed to really much hold back and give a couple more generously dynamic scenes that very much infuse for the emotionality. I feel Elizabeth Olsen got a lot of those moments, but Benedict Cumberbatch, there was a couple moments in between him and Rachel McAdams that I feel like were so important. And there's one in particular towards probably the lead up to the third act that I feel like we needed just a little bit more time and a conversation between both of them to very much settle in with a lot of the emotionality. And that really much would have infused a soul to the movie. That's where I feel like a lot of this movie is actually missing something. And it's missing that soul, that heart that was very much needed for this film to continue to beat. Every single MCU film, I feel like, has had this. And I feel like in this film in particular, it feels like, again, the editing and the script itself took that soul and just got rid of it. It feels like some of the rewrites, maybe during reshoots, I'm just guessing, were kind of missing in there. A lot of the stuff was mixed and really much just ripped out to infuse, again, maybe a more cohesive, paced out, better film. But in the end of the day, it feels like the film was supposed to be one way, and it ended up being this way, which leads it to being a very satisfying mess, because it's satisfying in the way that it's able to explore certain dynamics with characters and the fun aspect of the multiverse, even though it's not as crazy as it would seem. Definitely it is crazy, I think, but a lot of us need to understand and temper our expectations to where it was, and I definitely spent mine before going into this movie. But leading into that, one of the most important elements of this entire movie is that soul that was missing. And I really do feel like that there was just such an element to this that just feels rushed at times. I wish the movie had 20 to 30 more minutes of pacing to really much further out some of these characters, further out the world, further out the whole entire concept of the multiverse. Because at this point, I understand it. We need exposition to it. What I definitely need, though, is the exploration of certain worlds that they go to. And as much as I love the Illuminati stuff, I actually wish there was a little bit more to it and adding into it as well. Probably a comic book movie to really compare the pacing of this film to is Venom: Let There Be Carnage, a movie that's fast-paced, has a lot of fun and action to it, which Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is a ton of fun, but it really needed that time to marinate, take its time, breathe a little. You need those moments in these type of movies, or it just becomes a big popcorn fest, which is totally fine, but I expect a lot more when it comes down to the MCU. Again, that's as much as I can say without diving any deeper into this. Where I say Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is Sam Raimi's movie in and out. Horrific, brutal, shocking, and even scary at times. The film builds on each minute and gives and never lets up, even at the very end, even if it shouldn't have. And I will say this, there are 2 end credit scenes. One I liked, one I did not like at all, and that one felt rushed. But going back, Elizabeth Olsen is absolutely even better than she was in WandaVision. This is easily the best directed Marvel film in a while. The camera work, the tone, the score, and even a lot of the action. It's truly a damn fever-pitched comic book lover's dream. So many surprises and a lot of crazy shit to fall head over heels for, but I did have a couple issues. Film feels rushed. It feels like it's trying to get to the finish line and set up a bunch of stuff that it really much... Yeah, it needs to, but it also needed to take its time with its characters. At an insanely strong pacing, it feels that there was some elements missing that could have added to make it perfect some of the arcs, and especially some of the emotional avenues for our characters. Goddamn, I really much can't wait for the next Doctor Strange. I hope Sam Raimi returns and really much is going to be one of the ones in that writing room from the very beginning. It feels like he came in at one point, they had to switch some stuff up, and even, again, while they were making the movie, it seems like they still had to fix some stuff up. And overall, it feels like they had one movie when they started, and by the time they had ended, it was at one point. And I didn't even get to mention this, some of the visual effects in here are stunning, and I love the attention to detail. Other pieces of it definitely feels like they're just in front of a green screen, and I would have liked a little bit more practical. I know they're going to all these different worlds, but some of it just could have blended a little bit better. Overall, again, I think Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is a satisfying mess, one that fans will have so much fun with. I know I had fun with it, and I love what Sam Raimi was able to do with his directing style. I love the performances in here. I just wish the film had that core emotional element to it that I really needed to feel something throughout it all. I just felt like I was always trying to catch up, and maybe on a rewatch I'll like this movie more, or maybe I won't. I'll definitely be seeing it this weekend, and when I do my MCU ranking, that is definitely where that will finally falter into it all. So let me know down below, guys, what your guys' thoughts are. Hit that like and subscribe button, and without further ado, I'm going to give Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness a B. Thank you once again, guys, for watching this. You guys are really all the best. If you're looking forward to more MCU content, make sure to check those cards up above and the end screen. And just make sure, again, subscribe to this channel because we're getting a lot of MCU content later this week. I'm going to be comparing the first Doctor Strange to this one, ranking the entire MCU, and so much more. And I definitely want to have you involved with that. So again, can't wait to see you then. And as well, if you're interested in seeing movies early, make sure to head on over to Samsung Films on how to see those. But of course, until next time, stay classy.